And today would be the one day the mic is turned down low. And I don't want that, but it's not. Okay, so we're good. All right, so I don't have much to talk about today because you guys are just taking your midterm and you're really done. Next week and then the couple of weeks after that, we're moving to some of the other modules in Blackboard. So we have to talk about exporting yet, which again, like I said, it's a little weird that we wait this long to talk about exporting, but some of the things they talk about, I'm like, we kind of have to do these other chapters first. So we're going to talk a bit about exporting. It's not the biggest topic in the world, but there's a lot of little presets that go into that. So that's why it becomes a little bit bigger of a conversation, because we have to talk about the preset side and what you can do and all the different settings. So we're going to focus on not exporting the catalog, because you guys should be the masters of that process right now. It's more so exporting individual images and what you can do and what options you have. So that's what we'll discuss next week. But the week after that and the week after that, we're going to start talking about how do we mirror and marry together Photoshop and Lightroom, so that if you have to do specific edits that require Photoshop, how do we get it into Photoshop so that it comes back into Lightroom the way we want it to? Again, not the biggest conversation in the world. However, knowing the process is important, and there's a couple preferences. But then we'll start talking about the book module that same week, and then we'll finish the book discussion the week after that. So the book piece is a little bit bigger. So we covered the Photoshop stuff pretty quick, and then start on the book, and then finish it up. So the book has a lot of customization options and different things that you can do, and you're going to do a project, the book project. And it is a little bit bigger of a project than the ones that you've been doing weekly so far. So I'm giving you the information now so that you can start thinking about something or even starting to pull the images. So I'm going to give you all the criteria and kind of a quick rundown of what we're going to be doing, and then go through some of the more specific parts of the book side of it once we get to that point, because it doesn't pay to tell you that now. You'll forget.
The book refers a photo book like an album, or is it something else?
It will, yeah, it's basically like building an album in Lightroom is what it is. So yeah, there's, I find people either use it or they absolutely will never use it. However, knowing how you could use it could really benefit you in several different ways. And even some of the export options might even help you as you're building some of these other pieces as we move through the book and the slideshow and the layout module and things like that. So this book project, it has a couple of different parts to it. And in this book project, we're going to tie together the using Photoshop and Lightroom together and creating the book. So that's also why I'm giving it to you ahead of time, because it's a kind of a two-part deal. But basically your goal is just to create a book or album-like book using Lightroom. And I want you to think about maybe some type of either theme or, I don't know, some like where a set of images would work well together. Like some of you just did a documentary project. Now, granted, that was only 15 images. You're going to need more for the book, but it could be something where the images tie together and tell a story as you page through the book, kind of like a wedding album does. So if you want to start thinking a little bit about what you might want to put in the book, that's really all you need to do right now. Because what we're going to do is you're going to need a minimum of 40 images. Your book is going to have about 40 images. So I would say gather more than that so that you can weed it down to the 40 that you want to put in your book. And give or take a few images, it might be different, but that's the approximate number that will fit within the pages that we're putting together. You do want to make sure, I mean, if you've edited them in Lightroom already and you want to use some of them as part of the book, we're just going to create another collection and pull them in there with anything new that has to be added to it. But what you don't want is something that you edited like 2 years ago and that you're going to bring in and you're going to put into your album, because of the fact that we're going to use Lightroom and Photoshop together. So if you edited it prior, maybe just grab the original and then we'll just, I know you don't want to re-edit something again, but start it from scratch as part of this project. So it's fine if you have edited, but find the original so that you can kind of use it for this project a little bit more efficiently. But in the end, what you're going to do is you're going to pull in these images, import whatever you need to import yet. And then we're going to do any organization project. It's pretty open as far as the organization, culling, getting it down to the number of images that you want to use. Just because I want you to start developing the workflow process that works best for you. Because we've talked about the organization and everything and the different options, whether it's color coding or star rating or picking and rejecting. And I want you to find that method that works for you. So I left it wide open. You're just doing whatever organization necessary. After we talk about the Photoshop stuff, then your assignment that week is going to be to just edit all of your images. So you'll have the images by that in 2 weeks from now. And then you'll just make sure you have all your edits done. So some will be done in Photoshop, some will be done in Lightroom. You get to be the judge of that. I usually say at least 10 of them, once we have that conversation in that chapter, at least 10 of your images just edit in Photoshop. Could be basic color adjustments, something, just to show that you understand that simple process of taking it there, editing, bringing it back. And then if you have to re-edit stuff, you know exactly what to do to take it back into Photoshop to edit and save it back to Lightroom. So your first step will be to edit. Then the second step, and I'm not going to go through all those details quite yet, but is the actual creation of the book. So some of this stuff won't make sense until we actually talk about it, which is why I won't. But you will create a book that's any size that you want it to be. Lightroom has several options as far as the sizes that it offers, but you can pick whatever you want. There's hardcover, there's softcover options, there's square books, there's a couple more rectangular shaped books and things like that. You're just going to pick the size that you want, and you're going to create it. So, and I have some of the specs that at least have to have some of that stuff within your book, and then the rest of what you do is completely up to you. But it's getting the images together, and people have done all sorts of different things.
That 40 image should be in any special format, like a raw format or a GPA or...
Yeah, no.
Doesn't matter.
Yep, as long as you can import it into Lightroom and then do your edits, you're fine. Yep, either way it's okay. Do we what?
Do we get to print these books out?
I wanted to ask Bill if he had time to print them off. In the past, he had done it. He hasn't done it the last couple of years, just because of time and moving everything. Yeah, so I wanted to see if maybe he'd be willing to print them. I will ask him again, because maybe he needs, because maybe his intern needs a few things to do. He's got 1 or 2 work study students in there, and maybe they just need some more things to do. So I've already got him doing quite a few things. I'm like, I need this by tomorrow. So he said he'd make it happen for me. Maybe I can convince him to do that too. I'm on his good side. There's a chance. I'll talk to him about it just to see what he thinks. But I can't make any promises because they do get bogged down at certain times in the semester. But you do have the option of using those to go and print, because we're going to export them as either a PDF or JPEGs. And that makes it easier that if you had wanted to print them in certain ways from certain places, that you could easily do that too. So even if I can't get Bill to do it, it would have to be a soft cover for Bill to do it. That's, I know, the one thing. We don't do the hard covers here. But at least just the simple binding with the staple binding and just folded. He had done that in the past for us. So I will ask. But coming up with the idea is your goal right now. So it could be anything. It could be maybe you want to build a mini portfolio for yourself, and you want to pull certain types of images that you want to show off to other people, and you could do it that way. Maybe it's solely macro photography, or maybe it's all landscape, or maybe it's portraits. Maybe you just did a session with somebody. Tori just did a session. Maybe your book is the session, and it's kind of like an album that you would sell to a client. So it could be something like that where it's telling the story. So you have lots of different options that you can do, but what we don't want it to be is just 1,000 different types of pictures, because that picture's cool and that picture's cool and that picture's cool. So we're just going to put it in a book, but they don't really fit together. So you just want it all to fit together, whatever you choose. And that's why most people will pick some type of a theme or more of a portfolio thing where they can kind of make the images flow together well. But it is entirely up to you what you do. Just really, really make it a portfolio quality book that you could potentially use in your actual portfolio or as your actual portfolio. That's the goal. Does that at least make sense to get you started?
And when is that part due? 2 weeks?
So we're going to start this in 2 weeks. So next week we'll do exporting, and then the week after that we'll start the stuff that involves this project.
Okay.
Yeah.
Should have our pictures by then.
I think because you'll be surprised at the time it takes to customize the book part of it, and people really underestimate that and procrastinate, and then they struggle, and then it turns out kind of crappy. So if you really want this to turn out nice, I would have the images in 2 weeks, and then make sure that in that next week your images are all edited, so all you have to do is put the book together. That's my recommendation, to make sure you have enough time to put the book together, because the book will suck up some of your time more than you think it will. Not that it's going to be hours and hours, but you might think, oh, I just got to plop these in here. That's only going to take me 45 minutes, and then you're working on it for like 2 hours. So, and if you don't click the create saved book, then you're going to end up doing it over and over again and get really mad because you're doing the book over and over again because it doesn't save everything that you're doing. So that's the biggest button. But we'll talk about that when we talk about the book stuff. To get a little bit ahead going into next week with some of the exporting stuff, kind of breeze through chapter 9 and what he's talking about. Those are the things we'll go through. It might help going through it ahead of time, so that if you have any questions as we're talking about it, you're kind of prepped for some of those things that you're like, I don't get that. But we'll walk through all of those steps in class next week. Okay. So that's really the only thing that I have. Does anyone have any questions on anything?
If I make this shot to that recycling,
You want extra credit?
everybody gets an F.
Everyone gets an F?
Yeah.
On net?
I was thinking more on the positive side.
Ah, no.
Oh, then everyone gets an A.
Except you.
Yeah.
Oh.
I was helping you all out.
Uh,
Gotta get up.
so,